This is a Channel 4 survival special. What would you do? If you were the only one alive after falling from the sky? No food, no help, just miles of dense jungle and your own heartbeat? How long could you last? What would you do? Well, this isn't fiction. In December of 1971, a 17-year-old girl did just that. She fell 10,000 feet from a crashing plane and walked alone for 11 days through the Amazon to survive. This is her incredible story. It was Christmas Eve, 1971. 17-year-old Julianne Koepke boarded a flight from Lima, Peru to Pucallpa with her mother. They were excited. Her father would meet them upon arrival. 1 hour in, the sky turned black. Lightning struck and the aircraft was torn apart midair. Julianne, still strapped to her seat, was ripped from the fuselage. She fell 2 miles straight down into the heart of the rainforest. Somehow she didn't die. Miraculously, she was found by loggers working in the area who carried her out of the jungle on stretchers. When they arrived at the hospital, doctors told her mother was dead. Julianne's injuries were severe. One eye swollen shut, a broken collarbone, but mentally she was shaken. Her room was filled with gifts. Nurses and family crowded around her bedside. They all had questions. Where did you come from? What happened? Who are you? None of them knew. Julianne didn't either. She had lost her memory in the fall. All she remembered was her mother's warm smile. When Julianne was well enough, she left the hospital and went to live with relatives in the jungle. Days passed, and still she couldn't remember anything about her life before the accident. Then one day, while walking through the house, she saw a picture of her and her mother. Suddenly, memories flooded back. Relief washed over her. Now she knew who she was. But there was still a question: what happened to her mother? Was she alive? Julianne asked her aunt if she could visit the cemetery. When they arrived, she saw a small white cross with the name Maria Koepke inscribed on it. Juliana collapsed. She screamed for her mother. It was then she knew. Her mom wasn't in the hospital. She was here. Days turned into weeks, then months. Juliana slowly healed. She started seeing a psychologist, piecing together the traumatic events that led to her falling from the sky. She learned that Lesse Flight 50 had departed Lima International Airport bound for Pucallpa. There were 92 people on board, mostly heading home after visiting family in Lima. The plane was old. It was also severely overweight, carrying an extra 6,000 pounds of cargo. By the time the storm hit, it was too late. The pilot struggled to control the plane as it was ripped apart midair. Juliana was just 17. She had survived the fall of her life, but the physical and emotional scars remained. She moved to Switzerland to live with her father. She tried to forget the pain, but 3 years later, she was back in the jungle. It was 1975. Now 20, Julianne returned to Peru with her father to identify her mother's body. As they stood beside the grave, Julianne promised her mother she would keep going, for both of them. It was a promise she made to the woman she loved most in the world, and so Juliana returned to school. She graduated top of her class. She worked as a flight attendant. She met new people. Slowly, her life began to heal. Then in 1999, 28 years after the crash, Juliana reunited with the Peruvian doctor who saved her life. She also met with the press. Only then did she share her story with the world. But it was a story she never wanted to tell for herself. Of the 92 people who died on board, Juliana was the only survivor. She spent 11 days alone in the jungle, surviving on a single bag of candy. She walked 6 miles per day, subsisting on a diet of sugar. She avoided predators by walking in the water. Insects laid eggs in her open wounds. Snakes slithered past. Her skin blistered. At night, she huddled beneath trees, shivering from cold and hunger. Sometimes she heard planes overhead, but they never saw her. Still, she walked on. 10 days later, she collapsed beside a boat. Miraculously, she was spotted the next morning and taken to a hospital in Pucallpa. Barefoot, infected, and barely conscious, she was flown to Lima. When she told the doctors she fell from the sky, they didn't believe her, but it was true. Julianne had fallen 10,000 feet and survived. In the years that followed, Julianne never called herself a hero. She said, quote, "I was just very lucky, but I never forgot those who didn't." Thanks for watching.